I did print two of them off.
Oh, absolutely.
Printed just
Yeah.
because I had to.
Okay, today is Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. The time is about 3:50. I will now call the Policy Committee meeting to order. Ms. Kenny, is there a quorum present? Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Tara, second, all right. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, review of policies. We have 3 policies to review this afternoon. Policy 537, Policy 905, and Policy 1005.6. Is there a motion to approve sending Policy 537 to the school board? 537 is Positive Schools Expectations Policy.
So moved.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. One of the things that I would like to say is I'm actually going to make a motion to table this until
Yes.
it would need to be our first meeting of the new year, which will probably actually be in February. The reason that I'm going to make the motion to table it is this policy, first of all, is not an MSBA policy. It's a policy that was written by Faribault Public Schools staff, and it was written about, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago when the district was having some concerning student behaviors. And I'm not convinced that the items in here, the language in here matches with the route that we're going today, especially with all of our pre-K through 8th grade being PBIS aligned, and then with our high school coming on board next year with PBIS. So it's one of the pieces that I want to take a look at with building leadership to make sure that it matches. It might be something that we come back and say, yeah, we've done a lot of looking at it and we have made these significant changes, or we actually may look at it and say, we just want to get rid of it too. So I will at this time make a motion to table policy 537 until February, and I don't have the exact date, but it would be the first Tuesday in February. Would be our policy committee meeting, and those dates have not been set yet, but that's when we would most likely be doing them. So I will make a motion to table policy 537 until February, the first Tuesday in February of 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So any discussion on the tabling?
Thank you for doing that, because I've had a lot of questions on this policy, so I think it would take a long time. So, as you probably know, I've already sent you some, so.
Because there was a couple things in here, I'm like, we can't even do that now, so that makes sense that
Yes.
it's older.
Yes. Like I said, I wanted to say it was 6 or 7 years ago. There's no date on it, but I remember working on it when I was high school principal.
Okay.
And the administrative team put it together. I'm not even entirely sure if it has been vetted through our attorneys or not.
Okay.
So,
February is, the first Tuesday in February is the 4th.
all right, so
Okay.
it would be February 4th. So my motion is to table this until February 4th of 2025. Who was the one that seconded that? Are you still willing to second that? Okay,
Yes, I
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of tabling policy 537 until February 4th, 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. papers in order here. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 905, advertising, to the school board?
So move.
All right, thank you, Nick. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Tara. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question on the second page. It says nonprofit entities and organizations may be allowed to use a school district name, students, or facilities for purposes of advertising. So will the names of the students be given to those nonprofits then?
So if a.
That's my question, I guess.
Yeah,
It's a
so-
privacy thing, I guess I'm
So
trying.
the way I read this is nonprofit entities that want to come in and work with or interview students for their advertising purposes would need to get a release from parents to release their name.
And that would be for those under 18, right?
For those under 18, yes.
Yeah, because if they're over 18, they don't need to.
Yes.
And the parents would be aware of this then, of
The
course.
parents
the
would
way it
have to
sounds
sign
like.
off on it.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 1005.6, equal access to school activities, to the school board?
So move.
Thank you, Nick. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Nate. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, yeah, just two questions. It's on the second page. It's under 3 definitions. D, it says distribution of literature does not constitute a meeting protected by the Equal Access Act. So when they distribute the literature, I'm assuming it's only at the meeting. It's not to someone in the school, right? I just want to clarify that. It's just at the meeting, correct?
So you're
Okay.
looking at 3,
D. It's a distribution of literature, and then, so I'm thinking that it's only at that meeting. It's not to the school-wide or anything like that.
meeting includes activities?
My
Meeting
understanding is
is-
that this is not something that's led by the district, but rather the students.
So the students,
So like under purpose, it talks about
yeah,
access to the facilities for students to
Right.
conduct a meeting.
and so it wouldn't be a school-wide distribution. I just want to clear.
It
would
wouldn't
just
be the
at
school distributing it,
Right,
correct?
right,
Yeah, no, this is for non-school.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but then would the students have access to like distribute it throughout the district then? It would be just at that meeting, correct?
No,
I'm
what
just
this
trying
is,
to
what
clarify.
this is saying is that distribution of literature does not constitute a meeting.
Yes, and so when that brought up to me, I thought, okay, if they're distributing literature, are they distributing it to the school then afterwards? It's just at that meeting then, I'm assuming?
So there's different policies around pieces for that. So if
Okay.
there's a group.
Because
that
I know
wants-
there is more policy.
If there's a
on
group
this.
that wants to come in and distribute stuff to our students,
It has to go through,
that has to go
Yeah.
through building
is a
administration, and the
policy.
answer is usually no.
Mhm.
But then there are groups that will stand on the sidewalks and distribute
Mhm.
literature to students, and that is not governed by the school.
okay,
So
as long as they're outside the school building?
they have to be on the sidewalk or on the
Okay,
grass median beyond, between the sidewalk and the road.
thank you. And then only, the other question is under 4E, non-school persons may not direct, control, or regularly attend activities of student groups. And I think that's a good thing. What if somebody, a member of the public wants to just stop in? Can they do that? Because it says not regularly. Can somebody from the public just stop in if they need to, or? I'm just trying to clarify some things if people ask me.
It could be possibly, like, for example, I've had Michelle Redmond from Big Brothers Big Sisters
Mhm,
stop in
mhm.
and talk with student council at the high school about.
So it is
voting
acceptable, like, once in a while, then?
Once in a while.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
I think what they mean is that those are not open to the public.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can have, yes.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, so that was all of our reviews. Now we're looking at revisions. So we have 3 policies that are up for revision, policy 418, 901, and 902. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school, to the school board?
So move.
Thank you, Tara. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Discussion. So I believe this one has come to us numerous times already. What's that? Oh, this one was voted down at the board. Okay. So only the changes were voted down at the board. So we're still under the old policy. All right? So I guess and Jamie, is this a mandatory policy? It is a mandatory policy, okay.
So clarification, we're only discussing the red items for this.
So when it came up, we're still operating under the old 418, which does not have the red in it. So we're deciding here today if we want to send the red section, which is on page 3 at the very top, it's section 4D, if we want to send that, which was amended, it says the Minnesota legislator amended this law to add this protection. And I'll just read it. It says, the school district may not refuse to enroll or otherwise penalize a patient or person enrolled in the Minnesota Patient Registry Program as a pupil solely based on the patient or person is enrolled in the registry program, unless failing to do so would violate federal law or regulations or cause the school to lose a monetary or license-related benefit under federal law or regulations. So that was updated in 2024 by the legislature. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of sending policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school, to the school board, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 901, community education, to the school board?
So moved.
Thank you, Cassie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tara. Discussion. It looks like the only thing that changed on this one is the legal references. And it looks like just one legal reference. It was last updated in 2022. Any further discussion? Discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 902, use of school district facilities and equipment, to the school board?
So move.
Thank you, Nick. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. All right, discussion. Once again, it appears that the only change to this one is a legal reference under Minnesota Statute 123B.51. Any further discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, that is the last of our revisions. And now we're on to new policies. We have one new policy to look at. It's policy 606.5, number that I'm sure we're all familiar with. We talked about this at our last meeting. So this is more of a kind of open discussion. I do have some emails that were sent to me from board members around what they would like to see in this policy. And then, of course, whatever this committee feels as well. So the committee does not, I want to be clear, the committee does not have to support what the individual board members sent to us. But I want to make sure that you hear what at least one or two members have said, okay? So if you remember correctly, this committee decided to send this policy as is to the school board. It went to the school board at the last business meeting, which was September 28th. The board decided to send it back to committee and then have information come to me. I received 2 emails around 606.5, and I'll read both of those so that you kind of know. Actually, I apologize. I received 3 emails, and I'm missing that third one. I will pull it up on my computer. So I thought I printed that out, but I didn't. So I received 3 emails from board members. So I don't know how we want to do this. Do you want me to go through what the proposed changes are first?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Is everyone familiar enough with 606.5? Okay. All right. So the first one is, I'm going to read them in the order that I received them. So give me one moment here. Because they are kind of, the questions that come up are kind of all over the place with this policy, so that everyone knows. Some of it's about substance, some of it's about content, some of it's just about how it's going to actually work as well. So one was, here are my thoughts / questions regarding policy 606.5. They all relate to 7.2D. 7.2D. Am I reading that correctly?
7D2.
Must be 7D,
I was wondering.
Yeah, 7D2.
7D2. Yeah, they typed it backwards, so. And the makeup of the review committee. All right, it says, in the makeup of the committee, it states the committee shall include. Please note the word shall means it will. Should shall be changed to may is the first question. Are all of these people to be paid on this committee, or is it volunteer? If they are paid, is it an hourly rate or a project rate per book? Do existing contracts cover this for district employees? So that's like the first few questions there. Number 2, it states one library media specialist or district media specialist or public librarian if the school district does not have a library media specialist. It says, I believe we only have one district media specialist in our entire district. That is
Yes,
true,
that is
okay?
correct.
We only have one licensed media specialist in our entire district. What happens if this person doesn't want to do this? What happens if they don't like the pay or can't commit to the additional hours? It appears that then we look to public librarian to fill this role. What happens if we can't find this person? Do we expect this person to volunteer, or will they be paid? If they are paid, at what price? Okay. Number 3 is the principal and 2 teachers from our district. It states that one member of our administration would be, but it isn't clear about the principal and 2 teachers. My assumption would be that these are from our own school district, but we might want to call it out. Number 4, 2 members of the district community with no direct connection with the request for reconsideration. Can these be staff members? How do we determine that they have no direct connection? Who is responsible for lining these people up? Number 5, 2 student representatives age 18 or older, as appropriate to the specific request. Are these students currently enrolled at FHS or could they be in college? Many of our seniors don't turn 18 until midway through their senior year. Does one day matter from them being 17 to turning 18 if they are a senior at Faribault High School? So the reason I read all of those first is those were more like logistical type questions in my mind. So I think those are questions that I don't believe we necessarily need or have to answer here, but I think it's, my guess is that this policy might come back and forth a couple times. But those are questions there. Does anybody have any thoughts on those?
I think the shall versus may is a good point,
Okay.
personally.
And I do believe that 18 has to be held firm.
That what?
Being 18, the students being 18 years of age needs to be held firm,
Okay.
especially if we're talking about some books that may have consequences if younger students look at them.
So 18 means 18.
18 means 18.
Okay.
We don't want to put our district in any sort of jeopardy.
Other discussion? I don't know. Go ahead.
I do have another
Yep.
discussion point. With the media specialists, we used to have media specialists at every level. And there is a lot on the plate of a licensed media specialist. So if our media specialists were to say, no, thank you, I can't commit to this right now, I do think we need to look at Buckham Library and take a look at contracting with them. I don't think we need to say this is a voluntary position. They have a position, and we would have to come up with some sort of compensatory rate to pay them.
So that kind of answers another one. You said to pay them. So are you saying that this needs to be a paid and not a volunteer committee?
I would say if we're looking outside of the district and we're looking to someone with the license, because the statute is very clear. They need to have the library media specialist license to, well, if it's through our district, then it's through Department of Ed. But if we're looking for somebody with that licensure, they need to be compensated. I'm not saying everybody else needs to be, but if we look outside the district for that particular person.
I think you've got a good point there, because if it is a media specialist, they've had, education, and I don't think we should expect them to volunteer. Maybe the rest of the committee, but not the media specialist.
I think we're going to run into contractual concerns if we pay a media specialist and don't pay the teachers that are also on the committee.
What I'm saying is outside of the district.
Oh, outside of the district.
If Lynette could not do it, whatever her reason being, and we had to look outside, we would have to contract that.
Gotcha.
So it's outside of our district.
So what do you, I'm just going to pick on you since you're the
Yeah,
one
go ahead,
talking.
pick on me, I'm good.
So what about the people that are in district? It would not be the administration because they don't timesheet. Administration doesn't get timesheets, but I would be talking about teachers, media, library media specialists,
Yep.
let's just say in district.
Okay,
Um,
that's 3.
So how do you feel about paying those people?
I'm okay with pay or compensation, like comp time.
Okay,
It's not a sticking point for me, but I do think if you really want someone to commit to the time that this is going to take, there needs to be some sort of compensation.
okay.
I would agree. It could be quite a time commitment, and,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people deserve to be compensated for time.
If I can get a point of clarification, would we be putting in here that it's paid in here, or is this more of just a discussion of what it would look like outside of this?
I think this is more of a discussion, and I'm not entirely sure that we're going to make a lot of decisions and do a lot of rewriting here tonight. I think this is maybe, I think maybe I'll make a motion here that we kind of do some discussion here,
Yep.
and then I'll retract the board members' names, and I'll send out the questions that they had so that we can look through it for the November meeting, and then we can maybe start to put pen to paper there. But, because I just think it's a lot bigger than that. The board seems to want us to really kind of narrow this down and lock it in. So, but I think it's good to just have some discussion here for now. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's continue with the discussion around this for now, with the understanding that I will make a motion here as we start to wrap up, to table this until November.
Okay.
All right, does that sound fair?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then I will also send out I will copy and paste these emails retracting any personal information so that you're just able to see what
The questions.
what questions, all right? So one of the questions was, should we change shall to may? So I think that's something to think of.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
One of the questions was that, should we change the word shall to may?
Oh, okay,
Okay?
yes, okay.
So that was one of the questions. It has to do with, is it volunteer or is it paid? And if it is paid, then I think it would be in our best interests to look at a per project rate versus a per hour rate. Because I tell you what, I'm a slow reader and the district does not want to pay me to read a 500-page book.
Can be.
All right.
I'm pretty quick. I can have it done in a night.
Yeah, not me. It would take me a few nights, let's put it that way. So that was one piece of it. Are the people from our district, I think I think the principal and teacher one, I think we can agree that those need to be from our district.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then 2 members of the school district community with no direct connection with the request for reconsideration. Can these be staff members? That's a question that comes up. Where's that dual role? Like, Tara, I'll just pick on you now. You're a teacher in the district, but you're also a parent of students in the district. So could you fill both roles? All right, that's a question that comes up. And then who would be responsible for lining these people up? It would be my designee, which is probably going to be the director of teaching and learning. That's what it is in other districts. That's the person that runs these. So, and then I heard from Wendy that 18 means 18. It doesn't mean 17 and 364 days.
Correct.
How do others feel about that?
Yes, it's got to be 18.
Anybody disagree with 18 means 18?
Is it going to be harder to do that and still get a student in our district because many seniors don't turn 18 till later? I'm just wondering about the logistics of finding those people.
Well, it says as appropriate to the request.
True.
So I'm not anticipating we're going to have tons of requests coming
Yeah.
through.
So I think I think it has to do with the appropriateness of the request. What's the concern with it, and would it relate to having that age 18 number assigned to it or not?
Then that goes back to, I think we do have to change it to may then instead of shall if they're
Okay.
not going to be needed all the time,
Okay.
personally.
All right, I'm going to, so those are those, and you'll get those. The next email I received, they had an amendment in here. So this was page 3, section 5. So section 5, number 5. It says, library materials shall meet high standards of quality in one or more of these categories. They suggested remove 1 and insert 2. So they would want it to meet two categories of high standards instead of 1. Right? Reasoning. This section is the meat of the policy before us. When readability is all that is needed to meet the one standard of high quality required for selection of library material, the policy sets an extremely low standard level. This amendment would provide a more reasonable standard. We heard from 2 members of our community with knowledge of existing library materials who both requested this change. I asked the policy to join me in increasing this from 1 to a minimum of 2 areas to establish high standards of quality in 2 or more categories. Okay?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I did not send anything in because I knew I was going to be on the committee, but that is one of my concerns. And I'd like to see more than 2. My personally, if I would email it to you, would be 3 or maybe 4. I'd prefer 4. We've got to have a high standard here. And 1 isn't a high standard. I don't think 2 is either. So personally, I'd like 4.
Okay. So one of the pieces.
I'm interjecting now because I didn't send you
All right.
anything.
So one of the pieces is looking at do we keep that number 1 or do we raise it? And if we do raise it, what do we raise it to?
Right.
Okay?
I think some of these lines are, to me, subjective, right? Like,
Definitely.
how do you define critical thinking or readability? What's readable for me is not readable for you. Right?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So I think at least 2. I mean, I don't want to be overbearing either, right? So I think 2 would be reasonable.
Okay?
And I was just thinking, in part because of what you shared about Natalie with the newcomer coming in over the summer and was now reading at a 2nd or 3rd grade level, even though he's in high school. I want to make sure that we have books at every readable level in middle school and high school for our newcomers, for our students who might have learning disabilities or cognitive disabilities, that they have something to enjoy with a library access. So I do think that's a piece that we have to keep in.
Any other discussion around the number of categories? Okay, this person went on to say they had a second amendment. This was on page 5, section 7, D2E. So we're back to the committee, the review committee again, all right? So the D2E reads, 2 members of the school district community with no direct connection with a request for reconsideration. This person said, remove with no direct connection with a request for reconsideration. Reasoning, the composition of the library materials review committee is heavy in 5 district staff. As written, the community/parent membership is minimal, and restrictions in place shut out those requesting consideration, preventing them sharing their knowledge and concerns to the committee. This gives an appearance of disrespect to the concerns of community and parents.
Mr. Chair, that was to eliminate no direct connection then.
It said,
Correct.
remove, in quotes, with no direct connection with a request for reconsideration,
So remove
end
that,
quote.
okay.
Well, I try not to speak during this part just because I know that I want the opinion of the committee to help make a decision. I guess, first of all, I don't know how you would verify someone has a direct connection with the request for reconsideration. But also, I mean, that feels really biased. Like if you're a part of the committee that's going to ultimately be attempting to remove or not remove, how do you get an unbiased opinion without expressly saying no direct connection, right?
And I do think when they fill out the form for consideration, the person who fills it out has to put in detail what their concerns are and why. So their voice is in that committee.
Right,
And
and
it's-
incredibly important because
Yes.
it's the reason the committee is
Yes.
there and gathered. So, I guess my opinion would be to keep it on there. But again, that's,
I think I agree with you with the, keep that in there. That's just my opinion.
without a direct connection.
To keep that piece in there.
Yes.
And this is one of my concerns too, and I think it was mentioned, I believe it was mentioned at the board meeting by one of the board members, it wasn't me, but I think I agreed with it, that I think they said it looked, not counting the students, there's 5 administrators and like 2 members of the public who are not directly connected. So I guess their concern is it looks a bit unbalanced because there's so many district people on it. And that was one of the concerns that was brought
Yeah,
up.
and I've heard that from a couple different people, and so I actually did a little, because the concern is that this committee is educator heavy.
I suppose.
School district educator heavy.
And I guess they were talking about too, where, I guess the question was, well, like, where are the people not associated with the district? Where are the parents? Well,
Yeah.
the parents are, but they're not being paid for anything. And members that, and members of the community that aren't associated. And in my mind, and I could be wrong, not associated would be not a paid staff member or a paid, person in the district. That's what I took it to be.
And
So.
I want to caution a little bit with that last part of your statement, because we have a lot of coaches or people that will come in and just get paid maybe for a couple hours a year that are not affiliated with the district, but yet
Yeah,
they have a W-9 with us because they do 6 hours of work a year with us. You know what I mean? So I want to be careful that we're not
if we
limiting
went that way,
ourselves.
we'd have to be a little bit careful on that. So that was a good point, thank you.
Yeah, I would just want to, I don't want to paint us into a corner where all of a
Right.
sudden we're tapping the same 2 people over and over again, so.
And we do have our PTOs and we have our committee advisory boards for different committees we have.
Yeah.
So we do have some parents that we could tap.
Into that
Yeah.
would be good.
I
Because
do
I think
think-
more parents, and I think we talked about that at the board meeting, I'm not sure, I think it was Cassie, can you remember? It's been a while ago, I think somebody's aware of the parents, we need the parents there too.
I do think we have to be cautious too, though, that, the educated staff that are there, we are educated in some of this knowledge, like what is best for students, what do students like to read, what, is good for their learning, what are we working on? I do think we bring different aspects to the table than parents do as well. And I would want to make sure that we have representation from all of our parents. We have a lot of different, types of parents here. How are we going to make sure that we're listening to them as a whole?
And it may be too that it may be difficult for some parents, especially if they have 2 jobs, so I don't know how that would work out. I don't know, because it probably could take a lot of time, and parents don't have a lot of
I
time.
know.
And so
It's busy.
this is a
And
difficult.
that is one thing I think for us to keep in mind, that if this all goes through and there is a review committee that is set up and reviews start to happen, the reviews are at least a 6-week process.
That's a lot of time.
sometimes longer, but at least a 6-week process to get everything set up, to get the book read, to have the meetings, and to make the decision. So it's at least 6 weeks, if not longer. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and move on, because like I said, I'll make a motion here in a couple minutes to table this until our next meeting, but I wanted you to hear all of these. All right, third email that I received from a board member says, here's my input to the policy committee on policy 606.5, library materials. Section 5, Section 5, selection of materials, A5. All right, so Section 5.
Right back where we were.
Yep, back where we were.
A5, and we're right back. There seems to be, maybe
Same
we just rip that page out of this policy, and then we don't have to worry about that, right?
Right.
No. Section 5, selection of library materials, A5, leave as written. Materials selected shall meet high standards. The more categories required, the more restrictive the selection process becomes and is more subjective. Okay. Section 7, which is on bottom of page 4. Section 7, reconsideration of specific library material, D2, which is on the following page. All right, we're right back to the same one again.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Leave as written. A review committee should consist of professionals who are in the field of education. These professionals are trained and know what library and media materials are needed and best for students. It is important to have members of the school district community, and they will have representation on the committee. D4A states that the review committee may consult individuals, organizations, and other resources with professional knowledge on school library material, thus involving the school district community more as well. And then this person goes on to say, districts across the state have adopted the policy as presented. This policy is and has been well vetted. I hope for a solid recommendation and complete policy from the committee for the board consideration. So those are the 3 emails that I have received. Does anybody have others?
I just have one.
Yes.
And I think we touched on this one before. It's on the last page, 6. It's under review committee 4, shall examine the specific library material as a whole. I think we talked about that a little bit. I think some are saying we've got to read the whole thing, some that we didn't, and I think there needs to be some discussion on that so we can.
So you're talking about
Yeah,
on
because
page.
some books may not require the whole, and I know, was it you that asked me if I had some from Mary Hackett? And actually, I did.
Where are
get
you
some.
at in the policy?
On the last page, 6, it was talking about for the
Last
community.
page 6.
Page
4.
6, I mean. I'm
4, okay, so 606.5-6 is the
It's not the last
page.
page, I'm sorry, I thought it
All
was.
right, so that is section
Up on top for the review committee.
Section 7,
4B.
B,
Shall
shall
examine
examine
yeah.
the specific library
Right,
material
and I think we
as
need
a
some
whole.
discussion on that, yeah.
Okay,
So I don't know how we're gonna, because I think some books may not, for instance, the ones that Mary read, and I've got the transcripts here, and so I don't know if we need to read the whole book on that one, but that's for discussion, we'll see what happens.
So, I guess I don't disagree that portions of the book are inappropriate and graphic and pretty gross. I feel like if we're opening ourselves, and when I say ourselves, like the school district, up to potential litigation, First Amendment, that's all I'm picturing in my mind. We have to read the whole thing. Like, we have to. We can't just take a snippet out of context to ban a book. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but it's my opinion that we need to read the whole book. And more than likely, we'll get to the same conclusion that the book may be inappropriate, but it'd be my preference to read the whole book as opposed to a paragraph.
I just need to ask a question. This is a legal question. I know where there's pornographic laws in Minnesota. So that's what I'm thinking of. If there's a pornographic law and it violates the pornographic law, that certain section, I guess I have a question. Would we have to read the whole book then? I don't know. That, I guess, is a legal question. Because there are pornographic laws, but I'm not really current on all of them.
And schools and public libraries are exempt from those.
Yes, that's what somebody told me that, but
Yes.
then I've gotten mixed, even from the legislature, I got a mixed response, so.
Oh, no, those.
It is true that we are exempt then.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
No, we are exempt from that, for cases just like this,
Yes.
so that we can do
Okay.
the work that we need to do.
Thank you for clarifying.
Without having to worry about
Because
something.
I've heard two things.
Yes, no.
I'm like, okay.
As for the other part, and I'm trying to remember this, and I may have to make a call to our attorneys, but we had Ratwick come down, who is our attorneys, and Christian gave a presentation. I thought that he said
Yes.
in that presentation, you need to examine the entire work.
Might have said that, I can't remember.
And so that can be something that I can follow up with them
But yeah,
around.
I'd like to clarification on that.
Yeah, and the reason I think is because to kind of go along with what Cassie said, if we don't examine the entire work, then it's hard to say that we're not, because it has to do with content, and you're not allowed, we're not allowed to remove a book from a shelf because we don't like the content.
And I think that's the big piece of it. Like, of course, pornographic things we don't want in the hands of children, understandably, but this policy goes for lots of different things.
Yes.
So I think we have to know the whole context before just choosing a part.
And there's a couple things to also talk about that, and one is, in this policy, parents have a right to say, my child
Yes.
does not have access to this or this. So I think it does give parents some power. So if they know the policy, they can say, my child may not access any books or publications related to this or that. I mean, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth.
Do we
The
have a
other-
form then to fill out like that? Or do we have to make one then?
I would
This is a new.
We have to make
policy.
one, so we'd have to make one.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other
Thank you.
piece that, and this is concerning to me, is that this policy directly talks about licensed media specialists. And as people have retired in this district, we have not sought to replace them with licensed media specialists. Now, our media specialist, we have one, is supposed to oversee all of this. Well, of course, because she's also doing STEM and M, she can't. And she has been in elementary for 30-some years. What has happened at middle school? What has happened at the high school? Because of her licensure, can fall under it, but she has not been part of that selection. So some of the things that might be in the media centers at middle and high school, maybe because we don't have a media specialist at that level to provide the guidance when things are happening.
And also, I think, Mr. Grante, you did say at one point that schools or colleges or universities are not, they no longer have a library media specialist.
No, I think
program.
I don't
So that could be a problem.
believe there's any college or university in the state of Minnesota that has a media specialist field anymore. And the last thing I heard of that there was one left in Wisconsin. So that licensure area is pretty much
Yeah.
non-existent, so.
Yet it's in our statute.
But yet it's in
Yes.
our statute, exactly, yes.
I know, I seriously, I do have a problem with that.
Does anybody have this has been great conversation. First of all, let me thank you for this. I think this has been good to have discussion around this. Does anybody have any other discussion before we move on? I have two motions that I need to make. One that just came up because I just realized when our next meeting is, and it can't be that day. So,
Oh, yes, you're
It's
right.
not too late, as long as it's before 6.
okay. All right.
Yeah, we had asked that last time, or the time when we, yeah.
So how does does the committee feel that they would like to have the next meeting on November 5th, which is Election Day? Or would we like to move it 2 weeks later to the 19th? Not in town the 19th?
Don't mind.
I think
I say if
Election Day, I don't think we should have
Okay.
anything. So I'd go, Cassie, you were saying
whatever.
19th?
Legally,
Yeah,
we can have it, because it's,
Legally, we
Legally,
can
we
have it on
can't.
Election Day, yes,
because it's not between 6 and 8.
yes.
That is the night before Thanksgiving breaks. No, it's the following week. Never mind, we're good. Thanksgiving's late. I'm good either way.
Wendy, do you have a preference?
Well, it is my husband's birthday on the 19th, but I think he can,
It's not one of the big birthdays, is it?
they're all big. at
Oh,
his
they're
age.
all big at his age, okay. You better hope he doesn't watch this. Nate, do you have a
Come with
preference?
you and we'll
I'm
bring him some
indifferent.
cake.
Okay. So as the chair, then I'm going to say, let's move it to the 19th. Cassie, I know you won't be here. I'm sorry for that, but if you want to prepare a statement that we can read, by all means, you can email that to me, and I can read it here then.
Yeah.
All right, or how you feel on certain things. So we will move our next meeting to the 19th then of November. I don't like having things on election days, especially on presidential elections. So, all right, so the next piece is then I move to table policy 606.5, library materials, to November 19th. Is there a second?
Second.
Tara, thank you. All right. Any discussion around tabling this until November 19th? So what I will do is I will email out, you have the policy, but I will email out the ones that have come to me. Excuse me. That way we can really kind of start to zone in on some of our decisions at that meeting. And Jamie will try to keep that meeting just focused on 606.5 then, if we can. On the 19th, yes. So if we have anything that we have to go through, then we will, but, all right, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, there are no more items to discuss. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
All right, second?
Second.
Discussion? No. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.